Okay, here we are at the Hats of the 20th Century Museum, Hats and More. We're still trying to finish the display items. We're into the 1910 decade now, so, and I always relap into things I didn't quite tell right because I'm doing it so fast. I'm really wasting time when I have to redo it, but I'm too old. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. So anyway, here we are. We talked about the little book and these little lace appliques with the fob dobs on them. That was a cute thing. But this purse, I thought, I could pick this up. Poor old thing, it's losing its beaded tassel. We showed the lining a little bit, but it also has a little coin purse. Isn't that cute? Pretty clever back then. So lots of purses with the big heavy chains. So we've given that a better look now, and I've kind of put a ribbon around here to tell me what part I didn't do. I had breezed past this so fast, the little statue from the Boys Town, and the saying that was made famous by this little statue is, "He ain't heavy, Father, he's my brother." That's a real tearjerker. And that's their symbol or whatever, starting in 1917. And then I noticed 212. Well, that's when they started taking in girls, too. So there we go. That needed a little more talk. We went through this toiletries or beauty collection here. I didn't mention the pretty hairpins like that. There's quite a few of them stuck in there, but ignored. And then I talked about the box, but it's not a box, it's a card of hat pins. I've got it covered with plastic, and it says it's from Morris and Yeomans of England, and made of warranted steel. A lot of these hat pins have kind of a blue steel, but see, they slid in there and you'd get as many as was on the card. Very nice, very pretty. Okay, nice comb, lots of combs. And onto this America First thing again, which I know has to be from a war, and that they had this isolationist group called America First Committee in World War I, because I see a tank and I see a ship, but I'm not well informed on military things. They also had America First committees in World War II. So this stands to be World War II. So that'll be up to anybody else to do whatever research they want on that. So I'll set that aside. I brought this down, the calendar, unused calendar from 1916, compliments of Mrs. Olive Stark, who was the pastor at the church where my husband's grandparents were married in 1916. Thought we should talk about that a little better. Put her back up there. And this is not the grandparents, but an aunt and uncle who were also married in 1916. So that's what the typical wedding might look like at that time. Okay, I'll put that aside. Now, I found this gorgeous plate when we talk about auto hats and how the ladies tied their hats on and things. What a wonderful plate from that time period. Nothing expensive, just a cheap old plate. And if I ever get the gumption, I'm going to get all the way up to the wall to swap out these plates, because I have another one of a lady driving there, but it's a worse condition, so this would be an improvement. Anyway, if we're still up there looking up at the wall, we've got sheet music here that is just gorgeous. The artwork was so beautiful. I can't see from here who the artist was, but it's beautiful. Sheet music of Bubbling Over. Here's a typical colorized 8x10 from that time period. That happens to be my husband's great-grandfather. And also, we didn't talk about, there was another little handbag hanging here. And here's a little hanger that has some type of situation that could have been put on a hat and then also removed from a hat with these newer synthetics they were using for hat decorations in the 1900s, I mean. This is another, probably a hat simulation of a bird. I really don't know. And then these beautiful old collars and cuffs. If I move that hat, you might see it better. Do you see it okay? Yep. And another little vesty over there, a little collar. Okay, so now let's come back down to our corner where we were. And now that we've talked about collars, I'll admit that I said this was Egyptian lace, but all I'm really going by is that the label on it says Egyptian. And it does look, it's a collar, and it does look like the type of lace that was produced here in this collar, which is really from the decade, for sure, from the 1910s, because that's my husband's grandmother there. So this was her collar. Okay, what else do we have? All right, now that's kind of the things I didn't do well enough. So maybe I still haven't, but I've tried. Okay, my ribbon denotes what we didn't talk about. So let's see, we missed this. This is a dress clip, or being heavier as it is, it could be a fur clip. So you'd actually clip them onto your stole or collar, hold your collar together, or put it on your stole just to be pretty. Beautiful old pin, just for the sake of beauty. Has that kind of open hook clasp, which tells you it's really old. Here's another, oh, here's a buckle. That is the look of the day. I guess I've got a tape over it there. Has the rhinestones of different colors. There we are. A pin that is quite, or a lapel pin. It says Manila, I believe. And it would be an oyster pearl. Not pearls, but the shell, you know, made from the shells, as these buttons were made from the shells. But yet they call them pearl. Okay, that's a pretty pin. Here's a bit of medicine that got, it all started when I got this little mirror, this antique mirror from a friend of mine, so I Googled that. Cassarettes did it. All going out, nothing coming in. I thought, what is this? Well, it's a little laxative is what it is. So I got on eBay, of course. Should have had this open. There's pills in there. It'll take me 10 minutes to open it. There we go. I shouldn't probably keep things in plastics, but here's what came to describe it. Hence some advertising for a hair product. If you wanted to grow your hair, because that's still the deal. Oh, here, I guess it didn't come in. It came with it. There's the old laxative pills from, we may as well say, 100 years or more ago. Isn't that something? Casseret. And then I wondered, now maybe I should do a little, am I sure these shoes are from this era because we have so much high button and high lace and all of that? But they are, and I'll get to a catalog later that shows this style here in suede. Shoes made in Chicago, still in perfect condition. And I could mention that this is kind of the style we're getting into too, when they were wearing the headbands, a lot of upright feathers, as on this figurine here, and kind of Egyptian looks were popular. Here's another picture of kind of an Egyptian look with all your hair. You could put some rhinestones across it. So this is probably a postcard. Yes, it's always a postcard. Look at that. Lovingly from Catherine. But that's all we know about her and her fantastic outfit. Okay, so let's get into some of this about the motoring. So here, this is a reproduction, of course, but of a Coca-Cola photo, or I mean artwork, of a gal with a basket hat tied on to do her motoring. Oh, she drinks her Coca-Cola. Here's a postcard of some gals with their hats tied on to do some motoring. It says it's from 1914. That'll give you time to get a little shot of that. Okay, that's good. All right, and some motoring gloves, for heaven's sake. Isn't that something? And, of course, this fella right up here is wearing the goggles and the hat that I got with the gloves. And here's a map. 1920s. You really have to open it up and look hard to find the date, but it's a 1920 Iowa map. And they didn't amount to a whole lot back then because there really weren't roads worked out very well for quite some time. So now let's go down this. I think we've remembered everything. Beautiful box of candy. Well, there's no candy. But beautiful hat of the Edwardian period here. Too bad of these blistered out brown spots, but you know, that's still all right with me. Nothing on the back. Oh, still a seal there. Okay, and it was so surprising to me that they kept all the papers from the chocolates they'd gotten. So here we are again. It just fascinates me that I'm holding something that's more than 100 years old. Probably some fella gave it to his sweetheart. Here's an old typewriter. We're all familiar with old typewriters. I guess I talked about the upright feathers, so this is an example of when elegance meets with the ordinary here. She's all dressed fit to kill in her fancy hat with the upright feather, drinking from a garden hose. I just thought that was funny. Here we have, speaking of World War II items still, here's a Kewpie doll. Kewpie. Now, is this the best place to put it? I'm driving my husband nuts. Just a Kewpie card. And it's a Valentine, I imagine. Yeah, Valentine's. Okay, now I'm going to read the back because it's kind of sad. The gal has put the initials on each person. A little fella in love with a little girl and the gal writing the letter. And it's actually, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's actually from the mother of It Seems As Though a Son Lost in War, and how she misses her Ray. And would you please write to me sometime to cheer me up? Your friend Frida. And so it's no doubt someone's mother writing to a soldier that did survive, or a friend that didn't go to war. Anyway, we've done the typewriter. Goodness sakes, the kids like to play with that. And here's a ribbon thing, but I can't get it open, but it doesn't seem like there's a ribbon in it anyway. It's nice to have an old box. Further down, as I say, I love old brushes, so there's another old brush for you. See the picture? Yeah, don't want to waste too much time on just an old brush. We're always hurrying. Okay, I'll bring this over, because here is something marvelous. Oops, heavy too. It's a hat stretcher. Need to put it over the edge. And I'll tell you, I have stretched a bunch of hats on that when we had a hat group and we actually wore the hats. And hats tend to shrink just from aging because they take on moisture and then they dry. And it's just wonderful. I don't know the value of this. I know I didn't pay even $30 for it, but it's really been a good old workhorse. A big old heavy wooden hat stretcher. And down on the actual floor, I have some barbells from the era when people would actually exercise. I just think they're kind of cool being made out of wood. That doesn't have a marking of the poundage. Yes, it does. I think it says 2 pounds. I think I could believe that. Can't read it at all there. Anyway, they're just kind of neat. And then some more what would seem like overgates, but they're really not. They're ankle supports for sports. So they're made of leather and you lace them up tight and help support your ankles. And there's a cute fella there. Poor old fella's probably nowhere around anymore, but there's a dapper guy with his hair done up just so. I got him reasonable because the glass is broken in his frame. All right, so I think, oh my goodness, I think we've really done the display tables now. So now we're going to quickly, how are we doing on time, Paul? We got a few minutes?
13, almost 14.
Oh, we got some time then, too. I'm talking fast. I'm talking fast. Here is my Xerox book from 1910, and I've explained that these are the books I made for myself to keep from continually opening up the old pages of old catalogs and magazines, and that way I could just, you know, get to them quickly and the things that I felt were most important. I should start from the front, but, you know, I'm going to go from the back because we're standing this way. So let's just go through it. Here we are at the end of 1910 decade, which would be 1919. Short skirts were really more in than the long skirts, but this is still just beautiful from 1919. We won't see everything, but see, here we are, still 1919, and the high top, high button shoes. Different things, wonderful old. This shows that they actually wore shoes. And the handbag, I've got that newspaper over there, so I'll show you that way. Just all kinds of things. Here's the upright things were becoming popular in 1917, sheet music. All of that was brought about by a few stars of dance and fashion world that liked that upright feather thing. Here we are with things about the war, Wrigley gum for your soldiers, how to honor the flag, over there, over there. This really shows the shorter look. Of course, that did too. Shorter and fuller. I have a coffee pot, just nearly exactly like that, sitting over yonder here. Cat, just all kinds of things. Here we are with the voting. Okay, oh, the Fisk Hat Company. Here's a page of Vernon and Irene Castle. I'll get to that. I think I have that open. Oh, Kewpies. See all the Kewpie pages? I copied some Kewpie pages and Rose O'Neill that invented the Kewpies. These were the cutouts that, well, I'll get to that in the other place. Here they are in front of me here. Anyway, here's our 1910 decade Xerox for my benefit mostly. I'll set that aside. Alrighty. Now, should we go on just a few minutes, you think? How many minutes?
16:23.
16:23. Oh, let's stop right here. We'll start looking harder. I'll uncover this. We'll look harder at the Xerox book on just a few pages. No, look at me. I want to say goodbye. So we'll start up again, in fact, immediately, but we're trying to keep the videos a little bit shorter so for your benefit. Thank you so much. We'll see you.